Subscribe to StoryLab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Matt Casey had always believed in second chances, except when it came to protecting kids. At 34, he'd built his career as a documentary filmmaker, spending years exposing corruption in foster care systems and juvenile detention centers. His work had won awards, toppled corrupt officials, and most importantly, saved lives. But nothing in his decade-long career had prepared him for what would happen that October weekend. He'd moved back to Chicago 6 months earlier after his father's death, settling into his childhood home in Lincoln Park. His sister Stephanie had been his rock during those dark months, bringing casseroles and company when grief threatened to swallow him whole. Her son Kevin, just turned 7, had become Matt's favorite distraction, a bright-eyed kid who asked impossible questions and laughed at terrible jokes. Matt had Kevin's routine down perfectly by Friday evening. Chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs, exactly 3 episodes of his favorite show, and stories until the kids' eyes grew heavy. They'd spent Saturday at the Science Museum, Kevin's small hand gripping Matt's as they explored the dinosaur exhibit. Sunday morning brought pancakes and a failed attempt at a blanket fort that collapsed twice before they got it right. "Uncle Matt, when I grow up, can I make movies like you?" Kevin asked, syrup coating his chin. "You can do anything you want, buddy. You're brilliant." Something flickered across Kevin's face. A shadow that disappeared so quickly, Matt almost missed it. The boy's smile returned, but it didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. Matt had noticed things all weekend. How Kevin flinched when Matt raised his voice during their video game session. The way the boy obsessively cleaned up every mess, even wiping down the counter with paper towels until Matt gently stopped him. The nightmares both nights, Kevin's small body trembling as Matt held him, whispering that everything was okay, though he wondered what specifically haunted his nephew's sleep. But Matt chalked it up to the divorce. Stephanie and Christian Foster's marriage had been rocky for 2 years, the tension obvious during family dinners. Christian worked as an investment banker, his success measured in vacation homes and luxury cars. Stephanie had quit teaching to raise Kevin, becoming what Christian called a professional mother with a sneer Matt had wanted to wipe off his face more than once. Sunday evening arrived too quickly. Matt helped Kevin pack his dinosaur backpack, the boy moving with mechanical precision that seemed wrong for a 7-year-old. "Time to go home, buddy," Matt said, checking his watch. "Your mom's expecting you by 6. Kevin froze. His small hands clenched the backpack straps until his knuckles went white. When he turned around, tears were streaming down his face, silent and devastating. "Kevin, what's wrong?" The boy's breath came in sharp gasps. He shook his head violently, backing away from Matt until he hit the wall. "No, please. I don't want to go back." Matt dropped to his knees, hands raised in a gesture of peace. His documentary instincts, honed by years of interviewing traumatized children, kicked in. He kept his voice soft, non-threatening. Hey, it's okay. Nobody's making you do anything. Just talk to me." Kevin's chest heaved with sobs. Matt waited, giving the boy space to find his words. When Kevin finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Uncle, they made me do terrible things. Please come with me." The words hit Matt like a physical blow. His stomach dropped, mind racing through possibilities, each worse than the last. He kept his face neutral, through sheer force of will, though rage was already building in his chest. "Who made you do things, Kevin?" The boy's eyes darted to the floor. "I'm not supposed to tell. They said bad things would happen. They said." His voice broke. Matt moved closer slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. "Nobody's going to hurt you. I promise. But I need to understand, so I can help." Kevin's next words came out in a rush, jumbled and terrified. "The room in the basement. Dad's friends. They film me. Mom knows, but she just drinks wine and cries in her room." Matt's blood turned to ice. He pulled Kevin into his arms, the boy's small body shaking against his chest. Over Kevin's shoulder, Matt's expression hardened into something cold and deadly. He'd interviewed hundreds of abuse victims. He knew the signs, the patterns, the careful language children used when their innocence had been stolen. "I'm coming with you," Matt said firmly. "And I'm not leaving until I know you're safe." He carried Kevin to his car, the boy's arms locked around his neck. During the 20-minute drive to Stephanie and Christian's house in Evanston, Matt's mind worked through scenarios. He'd exposed predators before, but this was family. This was his nephew. This was personal in a way that made his carefully cultivated objectivity impossible. The Foster house was a pristine colonial on a tree-lined street, the kind of place that screamed success and stability. Matt had been there dozens of times for birthday parties and holiday dinners, never seeing the rot beneath the perfect facade. Kevin had fallen into an exhausted sleep during the drive. Matt carried him up the walk, noting the cars in the driveway, Stephanie's SUV and Christian's BMW. And a third vehicle he didn't recognize. An expensive Mercedes with vanity plates that read UWRTH1T. The living room lights were on. Matt approached the window, Kevin still in his arms, and looked inside. What he saw would haunt him for the rest of his life. Christian stood in the center of the living room with two other men, all three holding drinks and laughing. The basement doors stood open. On the coffee table sat a laptop showing paused video footage. Matt's stomach turned as he recognized Kevin's dinosaur backpack in the frame. Stephanie was there too, slumped on the couch with an empty wine bottle beside her, her eyes vacant and complicit. But it was the camera equipment set up in the corner, the professional lighting, and the stack of what looked like external hard drives that made everything crystallize into horrible clarity. This wasn't just abuse. This was production. This was distribution. Matt's hand shook as he pulled out his phone and dialed 911, never taking his eyes off the window. He memorized faces, noted details, his documentary training kicking in even as fury threatened to overwhelm him. When the dispatcher answered, Matt's voice was steady and cold. "I need police at 2847 Maple Street in Evanston. I'm reporting child sexual exploitation and child pornography production. Multiple adult suspects on scene. I have the victim with me, and he's safe. Send detectives. Send everyone." The police arrived in Waves patrol cars first, then detectives, finally a specialized unit Matt recognized from his documentary work. Detective Deborah Klein led the investigation, a 15-year veteran with the kind of weary eyes that had seen too much. Matt sat in his car with Kevin still sleeping against him, watching through the windshield as officers stormed the house. Christian was brought out in handcuffs, still in his expensive suit, face purple with rage. He spotted Matt through the car window and lunged in their direction, held back by two officers. Stephanie came next, stumbling and sobbing, barely coherent. The two other men Matt made sure to memorize their faces were loaded into separate patrol cars. One of them, a heavy-set man in his 50s with silver hair, was screaming about lawyers and immunity and who did they know what they were doing. Detective Klein approached Matt's car around midnight. Kevin had woken briefly, seen his parents being taken away, and said nothing. Just pressed closer to Matt. "Mr. Casey." Klein's voice was professional, but kind. "We need to get Kevin to the hospital for an examination. And you'll need to make a formal statement." "What did you find in there?" Matt asked, though part of him didn't want to know. Klein's jaw tightened. "Enough to put them away for life. Multiple devices, cloud storage accounts, encrypted files. This wasn't amateur hour. We're talking organized, professional production." She paused. "We found subscriber lists, payment records. This goes deeper than your brother-in-law and his friends." Matt's eyes narrowed. "How much deeper?" "Can't say yet. But the man who was yelling about immunity? That's Roderick Underwood, real estate developer, major political donor, sits on the board of 3 children's charities." She shook her head in disgust. "Always the ones you'd never suspect." Kevin stirred in Matt's arms. "Uncle Matt, are they gone?" "They're gone, buddy. They can't hurt you anymore." But even as he said it, Matt knew it wasn't over. As he carried Kevin toward the waiting ambulance, his mind was already working. He'd spent a decade documenting how predators operated, how networks protected their own, how money and power could corrupt investigations. He'd seen cases collapse on technicalities, seen evidence mysteriously disappear, seen witnesses recant under pressure. Not this time. This time, he wasn't just a filmmaker documenting from the outside. He was inside the story, and he'd make damn sure these men paid for every second of what they'd done to Kevin. If the system failed, and his gut told him it might, he'd find another way. Matt Casey had always believed in second chances. But not for this. Never for this. 48 hours later, Matt sat across from his friend Hal Underwood in a coffee shop in Wicker Park. Hal was a cybersecurity consultant, the kind of guy who could find digital footprints most people didn't know existed. He was also unfortunately, Roderick Underwood's younger cousin, a connection that had created a chasm in the Underwood family since Roderick's arrest. I can't believe it's actually Roderick, Hal said, his hands wrapped around a coffee mug he hadn't touched. Growing up, he was the success story, the one who made it, family gatherings. He'd talk about his charity work, supporting youth programs. It's always the ones who position themselves as protectors, Matt said. Classic predator behavior. Get close to the vulnerable under the guise of helping. Hal looked up, his expression haunted. Matt, there's something you need to know. My firm did security consulting for Roderick's company 2 years ago. Standard stuff, network security, encrypted cloud storage setup. He paused. I think I helped him build the infrastructure they use for this. Matt leaned forward. You set up the storage systems? I didn't know what it was for. He said it was sensitive financial documents, property deeds, private client information. But yeah, I created encrypted partitions, showed them how to use VPNs, set up automatic backups to multiple offshore servers. Hal's voice cracked. If I helped him do this to kids. You didn't know, Matt said firmly. But that infrastructure, the police sees the devices. But you're telling me there are off-site backups? Multiple. That was the whole point: redundancy, accessibility from anywhere. Hal met Matt's eyes. The cops got what was in the house, but if Roderick had access to those cloud accounts from anywhere, the evidence, the subscriber lists, the payment records, it all still exists. Matt sat back, his mind racing. This was the reality Detective Klein hadn't said out loud. With expensive lawyers and digital evidence that might be challenged in court, men like Roderick Underwood often walked. Especially if that evidence could be cast as inadmissible or if key files mysteriously disappeared before trial. Can you access those servers? Matt asked quietly. Hal's eyes widened. Matt, what are you thinking? I'm thinking the legal system moves slowly. I'm thinking powerful men with expensive lawyers can drag cases out for years while victims wait for justice. I'm thinking Kevin deserves better than watching his abusers get bail and book deals. You want me to hack into evidence for an active police investigation? I want you to preserve evidence that might otherwise disappear. Document everything. Create a backup that can't be compromised. Matt's voice dropped. And I want to know exactly who else is involved in this network. Every name, every face, every transaction. Hal was quiet for a long moment. You know what you're asking me to risk? I do. And if you say no, I'll understand. That's my cousin. My family. Is he? Matt asked. Or is he a predator who hurt children and hid behind a family name? Hal stood up, leaving his untouched coffee on the table. For a moment, Matt thought he'd walk away. Instead, Hal pulled out a pen and wrote an address on a napkin. My office. Tonight, 10 o'clock. Bring Kevin's medical records and your statement to police. I need to verify he's a confirmed victim before I do anything that could end my career. He met Matt's eyes. Because if we're doing this, we're doing it right. No room for doubt. No room for error. These bastards are going down. And they're going down hard. After Hal left, Matt sat alone with his thoughts. He crossed a line, asking Hal to break the law. But as he remembered Kevin's terrified face, the boy's whispered confession, the casual way those men had been laughing in that living room, he felt no regret. Only cold, calculated purpose. His phone buzzed. A text from Stephanie's lawyer. She wants to see you. Says it's urgent. Says she'll tell you everything if you come alone. Matt stared at the message. His sister, who'd let her son be brutalized, who'd chosen wine and willful ignorance over protection. Every instinct screamed not to trust her. But if she was willing to talk, to give up names and details that could strengthen the case. He texted back. When and where? The Cook County Jail visiting room smelled of industrial cleaner and desperation. Stephanie sat across from Matt, separated by scratched plexiglass. She'd aged a decade in 2 days. Her hair hung limp, mascara stained her cheeks, and her hands trembled as she picked up the phone. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice hollow. I wasn't sure you would. Matt said nothing, just stared at his sister with cold eyes. I know you hate me, Stephanie continued. I hate myself. But Matt, you have to understand, there's nothing to understand. You knew what was happening to Kevin, and you did nothing. I was terrified. Tears spilled down her face. Christian said if I told anyone, I'd lose everything. He had videos of me, Matt. He said he'd ruin me, say I was part of it, that I'd go to prison too. You should go to prison. I know. She pressed her hand against the glass. But I can help you. I can tell you things the police don't know yet. About the network, about how it all worked, about who's really in charge. Matt leaned forward. Christian and Roderick are in charge. Stephanie laughed bitterly. They're middle management. This thing, it's bigger than you think. There are others, powerful people, judges, politicians, businessmen. They have ways of making evidence disappear, of getting cases thrown out. Names. I need names. I'll give you everything. Every name Christian ever mentioned. Every face I saw at their parties. Her voice dropped to a whisper. But I need something from you first. Matt's expression hardened. You're in no position to negotiate. I need you to protect Kevin. They're going to come after him, Matt. These men have too much to lose. They'll threaten him, discredit him. Maybe worse. Christian already has lawyers working on a defense that'll paint Kevin as confused, me as a disturbed liar, you as a documentary filmmaker who needed a story. Kevin's with me. He's safe. Is he? Stephanie's eyes were desperate. Matt, you're not a cop. You're not a prosecutor. You're one man. These people have resources you can't imagine. If you want to protect Kevin and make sure these men pay, you need to play their game. And that means being smarter and more ruthless than they are. Matt studied his sister. She'd always been the cautious one, the people pleaser who avoided conflict. To hear her talk about being ruthless felt wrong, like watching a stranger wear his sister's face. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm saying the police investigation is already compromised. One of the detectives working the case is on Roderick's payroll. Evidence will go missing. Witnesses will recant. It'll fall apart unless you have insurance. What detective? I don't know his name. But Christian mentioned it the night before you picked up Kevin. He was confident, said they had it handled, that everything would blow over. She wiped her eyes. Matt, I know I don't deserve your trust, but I'm Kevin's mother. Maybe I can't ever make this right, but I can help you protect him and destroy the men who hurt him. Please. Matt stood up. Write down every name, every detail, every piece of leverage Christian and Roderick have on these people. Give it to your lawyer to pass to me. If anything you tell me is a lie, if this is some scheme to help Christian, I will make sure you never see Kevin again. It's not a scheme. I swear. We'll see. Matt turned to leave, then looked back. For what it's worth, Stephanie, I'll keep Kevin safe. But not for you. You stopped being his mother the first time you heard him crying from that basement, and did nothing. He walked out, leaving his sister sobbing into the phone. That night, Matt stood in Hal's office surrounded by monitors displaying lines of code and file directories. Kevin was asleep at Matt's apartment, watched by Matt's friend Larry Holt, a former Marine who'd promised to keep the boy safe. I'm in, Hal said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Jesus, Matt, the amount of data here. It's terabytes. Videos, photos, transaction logs, encrypted messages. Can you download it all? Already am. But Matt, you need to see this. Hal pulled up a spreadsheet. Subscriber list. Over 300 names. Look at some of these. Matt leaned closer, his blood running cold as he recognized names. A state senator, 2 federal judges, the CEO of a major tech company, a police deputy chief Emmanuel Christian. Matt read aloud. Any relation to my brother-in-law? His uncle, Hal confirmed. Which explains how they kept this operation running for so long. Inside protection at multiple levels. Matt's jaw clenched. This wasn't just about putting Christian and Roderick away. This was about dismantling an entire network that had protected itself through power and corruption. How much time do we have before they realize this data is compromised? Hard to say. Roderick's in jail, but if he has outside help, they could lock me out anytime. Hal glanced at Matt. What's the play here? We document everything. Create redundant backups. Then we start working down the list. Matt's voice was hard as steel. These men think they're untouchable because they're powerful. We're going to prove them wrong. And if the legal system doesn't work, if Stephanie's right about corruption in the investigation, Matt met his friend's eyes. Then we make sure they face consequences anyway. Whatever it takes. Hal nodded slowly. I'm all in. But Matt, we need to be smart about this. We're talking about taking on people with serious resources. I've been documenting corrupt systems for 10 years. I know how they operate, how they protect themselves. Matt pulled up a chair. We use their own tactics against them. Gather ironclad evidence. Build public pressure. Make it impossible for them to hide. They worked through the night, downloading files, documenting the network structure, creating encrypted backups on servers even Hal's cousin couldn't access. By dawn, they had everything enough to put dozens of powerful men in prison for life. But Matt knew information alone wouldn't be enough. These men had lawyers, connections, and the resources to wait out investigations. They'd already proven they could corrupt the system from the inside. He needed a different approach, something they wouldn't expect, something that would make them desperate enough to reveal themselves while ensuring Kevin stayed safe and got justice. As the sun rose over Chicago, Matt Casey began planning. Not just a legal case, but a trap. One that would catch every predator in the network and make sure none of them ever walked free again. His nephew deserved no less. 3 days after the arrests, Matt received an unexpected visitor. Phil Roberson was a federal prosecutor who'd built his reputation on taking down organized crime. He showed up at Matt's apartment with Detective Klein, both looking grim. "Mr. Casey," Roberson said, accepting the coffee Matt offered but not drinking it. "We need to talk about the case against Christian Foster and Roderick Underwood." "I already gave my statement." "This goes beyond your statement." Roberson exchanged glances with Klein. "How much do you know about CSAM distribution networks?" "Enough. I've made 3 documentaries about child exploitation." "Then, you know these operations don't exist in a vacuum. They require infrastructure, payment processing, secure hosting, distribution channels. All of that leaves traces." Roberson leaned forward. "We've been investigating a network called The Gallery for 2 years. High-end operation catering to wealthy clients. We knew it was operating in the Midwest, but couldn't find the source. Until now." Matt's stomach tightened. "Christian and Roderick are part of The Gallery?" "They're producers," Klein said quietly. "The Gallery has a tier system. Viewers pay subscription fees. Producers create content and get a cut. Elite members can request custom content. It's a sophisticated business model built on child abuse." "How big is this network?" "Nationwide. Possibly international." Roberson pulled out a tablet showing an organizational chart. "We've identified 17 producers, over 300 subscribers, and administrative staff who handle the technical side. Your nephew's case gave us the breakthrough we needed to map the whole system." Matt studied the chart, recognizing several names from Hal's late-night research. But he kept his expression neutral, offering no hint that he'd already seen this information. "What do you need from me?" "Your cooperation. Kevin's testimony will be crucial, but we need it to be airtight. Defense attorneys will try to discredit him, say he was coached or confused." Roberson met Matt's eyes. "We need you to be patient. Let the system work." "How long?" "Cases like this take time. Could be a year before we get to trial, especially with this many defendants." Matt's jaw tightened. A year of Christian and Roderick sitting in jail with access to lawyers and outside communication. A year for their network to destroy evidence and intimidate witnesses. A year of Kevin waiting to testify against the men who hurt him. "I understand your frustration. Do you?" Matt stood abruptly. "Have you ever interviewed a 7-year-old about sexual trauma? Have you watched a child describe things no kid should even know exist? Kevin has nightmares every night. He barely eats. He flinches at sudden movements. And you want him to wait a year in limbo while lawyers play games?" "We want justice," Klein said firmly. "Real, lasting justice. That takes time and patience. Unless it falls apart first," Matt countered. "Stephanie told me the investigation is already compromised." "Is that true?" Roberson and Klein exchanged another look. "There was an incident," Klein admitted. "Some evidence from Roderick's home was mishandled. Nothing critical, but enough to raise questions about chain of custody." "Who mishandled it?" "A detective named Emmanuel Christian. He's been suspended pending investigation." "Christian's uncle," Matt said. "How convenient." "We're handling it," Roberson insisted. "But this is why we need you to let us do our jobs. If you start your own investigation or try to take matters into your own hands, you could jeopardize everything." Matt forced himself to nod. "I understand. Kevin and I will cooperate fully." After they left, Matt stared at the closed door. They'd basically confirmed everything Stephanie said and more. The investigation was compromised, the network was vast, and the timeline stretched on forever while predators remained threats. He picked up his phone and texted Hal, "Change of plans. We need to move faster." Hal arrived after midnight with his laptop and a six-pack of beer he didn't open. Matt had put Kevin to bed an hour earlier, the boy finally sleeping peacefully after Matt read 3 chapters of his favorite book about dinosaurs. "I've been thinking about this non-stop," Hal said, pulling up files on his computer. The gallery operates like any dark web marketplace. Anonymous transactions, cryptocurrency payments, encrypted communications. But every system has weaknesses. What kind of weaknesses? Human ones. These guys got comfortable, sloppy. They thought their encryption and Emmanuel Christian's protection made them invincible. Hal pulled up a series of chat logs. Look at these messages from Roderick. He's coordinating with the administrators, discussing expansion plans, mentioning specific clients by their real names. Matt scanned the messages, his disgust growing with each line. These are admissible, legally obtained from Roderick's seized devices, so yes. But here's the interesting part. Hal opened another file. The administrators use a specific server in Romania for their operations. I've worked with international cybercrime units before. If we could get evidence directly to them, skip the compromised local investigation. You're talking about going around the U.S. legal system. I'm talking about making sure these guys can't hide behind technicalities and corrupt cops. Interpol and the Romanian authorities don't care about Emmanuel Christian's connections. They want to shut down servers hosting child exploitation material. Matt considered this. If we feed them evidence, it becomes an international case. Exactly. Harder to compromise, multiple jurisdictions involved, more public pressure. And more importantly, extradition treaties mean these guys can't avoid prosecution even if they have local judges in their pocket. What do you need from me? Your documentary contacts. You've worked with international journalists, right? The kind who publish stories governments can't suppress. Matt nodded slowly. I have contacts at several major outlets. Investigative journalists who've worked with whistleblowers on similar cases. Then here's what I'm thinking. Hal pulled up a new document. We create a comprehensive dossier, chat logs, subscriber lists, financial records, everything. We give it to the Romanian authorities through proper Interpol channels. Simultaneously, we give it to journalists who can publish the story before anyone has time to bury it. That could compromise the U.S. investigation. The U.S. investigation is already compromised. Roberson said so himself. Evidence is being mishandled. Timelines are stretching. Meanwhile, these men are organizing their defense and potentially coordinating from jail to destroy evidence and threaten witnesses. Matt walked to the window, looking out at Chicago's nighttime skyline. Everything in him wanted to move fast, to crush these men before they could hurt anyone else. But he'd spent years documenting criminal justice failures. He knew the risks of vigilante action, of undermining legitimate legal processes. There's another option, Matt said slowly. What if we use their own network against them? Hal tilted his head. Explain. The gallery operates on trust that the administrators will protect user identities. Trust that payment systems are secure, trust that the network is invulnerable. What if we shatter that trust? Make the network destroy itself from within? A false flag operation? More like information warfare. Matt turned back to Hal. We have access to their entire system, right? Communications, financial records, user data, everything. Then we don't just expose them. We make them turn on each other. We leak information that makes them doubt their own security. We create chaos in their network while building an ironclad case outside of it. Hal's eyes lit up with understanding. We make them scramble, make mistakes. Desperate people do stupid things. Exactly. And while they're panicking and exposing themselves, we're documenting everything and building multiple cases, local, federal, international. By the time they realize what's happening, they're trapped from every direction. That's, actually, brilliant. Hal opened a new window on his laptop. Okay, let's game this out. We start by compromising their trust. Send anonymous messages through their own system, suggesting the administrators are cooperating with law enforcement. Plant evidence that makes it look like communications are being monitored. Meanwhile, I reach out to my journalist contacts and start preparing the story. But we don't publish yet, that's our insurance. Our nuclear option if the legal cases fall apart. And we feed information to the international authorities, building that case quietly in the background. Matt felt strategy clicking into place. The same instincts that had guided his documentaries, now focused on a very different kind of storytelling. We also need to protect Kevin and any other victims. If the network panics, they might get desperate. I'll set up secure monitoring of their communications. Any hint of threats, we'll know immediately and can alert law enforcement. They worked until dawn, building a multi-pronged strategy that would pressure the network from all sides. Matt felt something close to satisfaction, not happiness, never that, not while Kevin still woke up screaming, but purpose. Cold, focused purpose. As Hal packed up his laptop, he paused. Matt, if this works, these men are going to come after us. Lawsuits, maybe worse. Let them come. I'd rather fight them head-on than watch them walk free on technicalities. After Hal left, Matt checked on Kevin one more time. The boy slept peacefully, clutching his stuffed triceratops. Matt made a silent promise to the sleeping child. These men would pay. Not just with jail time that might be shortened by good behavior and clever lawyers, but with complete destruction of everything they'd built. The gallery thought itself untouchable. Matt Casey was about to teach them the only lesson they'd understand. The first crack appeared 48 hours later. Matt monitored it, through encrypted channels Hal had set up, watching as panic rippled through the gallery's network. Someone had posted in their private forum. Security breach confirmed. All member data potentially compromised. Recommend immediate shutdown of personal accounts and cessation of communications. The response was immediate chaos. Members frantically deleting accounts, withdrawing funds, posting paranoid theories about law enforcement infiltration. The administrators tried to calm the situation, but Hal's carefully planted evidence fake communication logs suggesting admin cooperation with authorities made their reassurances hollow. Within 24 hours, the network that had operated with impunity for years was eating itself alive. Matt documented everything from his apartment, his documentary cameras capturing screenshots and chat logs that would later be used as evidence. Kevin was at school his first day back, supervised by a therapist and security Matt had personally vetted. His phone rang. Prosecutor Robertson, Mr. Casey, did you have anything to do with the security breach in the gallery's network? I don't know what you're talking about, Matt said truthfully. After all, it was Hal doing the technical work. Right. Well, whatever happened, it's actually helping our case. Members are reaching out to law enforcement, trying to cut deals. Everyone's pointing fingers at everyone else. It's a prosecutor's dream. Glad to hear it. 2 federal judges have already resigned rather than face exposure. The state senator is claiming his account was hacked, and Roderick Underwood's lawyer just called begging for a plea deal. Matt's grip tightened on his phone. What kind of deal? He wants to give up the whole network in exchange for reduced sentence. Names, financial records, everything. Are you going to take it? Hell no. We don't need him. Anymore, we're getting cooperation from a dozen other sources, all trying to save themselves. Underwood can rot. After Robertson hung up, Matt allowed himself a thin smile. The plan was working. The network's paranoia and self-preservation instincts were doing his job for him. But the real test was coming. Christian Foster had remained silent through all of this, his expensive lawyers advising him to say nothing. Matt needed Christian to break, to expose himself in ways that would make conviction inevitable. That's where the next phase came in. Matt made a call to Julian Moss, an investigative journalist who'd worked with him on his foster care documentary. Julian, remember when you said if I ever had a story that could change things, you'd run it no questions asked? I remember. I have that story. Child exploitation network, high-level corruption, evidence that'll make your career. But I need you to do it my way. I'm listening. We're going to publish enough to create pressure, but hold back the nuclear information. We're going to make one specific person think he can still get away if he plays his cards right. And when he makes his move, we'll be waiting. Who's the target? Christian Foster, my brother-in-law, the man who hurt my nephew. Julian was quiet for a moment. Matt, this sounds personal. It is personal, but that doesn't make it wrong. This man and his network have abused dozens of children. The system is compromised. If we don't apply pressure from outside, some of them will walk. I won't let that happen. Send me everything. I'll start working on the story. The article hit 3 days later. Julian's outlet ran it as a front-page exclusive. Gallery of Horrors. How a child exploitation network operated under protection of corrupt officials. The story named Christian Foster and Roderick Underwood as key operators, but carefully avoided mentioning some of the other high-profile names Julian had, but agreed to hold back as leverage. The implication was clear: cooperate fully or be next. Matt watched the fallout from his apartment. News vans descended on the courthouse. Social media exploded. Protests formed outside the jail, where Christian and Roderick were held. Then Christian's lawyer called. "Mr. Casey, my client wants to talk to you." "Why would I talk to him?" "He says he has information about who's really running the gallery. He says the people you've exposed so far are just the American branch. The real power is overseas, and they're planning to relocate operations and continue." Matt's mind raced. Was this a ploy or legitimate information? What does he want in return? To see Kevin. 10 minutes, supervised, before he starts cooperating with authorities. Every muscle in Matt's body tensed. Absolutely not. "Mr. Casey, if there's a larger network planning to continue these operations with new victims, then Christian can tell that to the prosecutor without using my nephew as a bargaining chip. He won't. He'll only talk if he sees that Kevin is okay. He claims he needs to know his son is being cared for before he destroys his last remaining relationships." Matt wanted to refuse, to tell Christian's lawyer exactly where his client could shove his paternal concern. But if there was a larger network, if more children were at risk, "I'll talk to Kevin's therapist. If she says he can handle it, if Kevin agrees, I'll consider it. But Christian doesn't get to make demands about the time or place. We do this on my terms, with protection for Kevin or not at all." The lawyer agreed, and Matt immediately called Kevin's therapist, Dr. Eunice Hopkins. She'd been working with the boy since the disclosure, carefully helping him process trauma while maintaining his mental health. "A supervised visit could be therapeutic, Doctor," Hopkins said carefully. "Kevin has expressed confusion about his father. He's angry, but also grieving the relationship. Seeing Christian in a controlled environment, understanding that his father can't hurt him anymore, might provide closure. Or it could re-traumatize him. That's why I'd be there, and you'd be there, and we'd prepare Kevin extensively. If at any point he's uncomfortable, we end it immediately." Matt hated this, but he also recognized it as an opportunity. Christian wanted to see Kevin to assuage his own guilt, to play the concerned father. What he didn't know was that Matt would be documenting everything, building a record of Christian's behavior that would destroy any sympathetic narrative his lawyers tried to construct. "Set it up," Matt said, "but I want every detail planned perfectly. Christian doesn't get a single opportunity to manipulate or hurt Kevin again." The meeting was arranged for 5 days later in a secure room at the courthouse. Matt spent those days preparing Kevin, explaining what would happen, making sure the boy knew he was safe and that seeing his father was completely his choice. "I want to ask him why," Kevin said quietly the night before. "Why he did those things. Why he didn't love me enough to stop." Matt's heart broke. "Buddy, you know none of this was because of you, right? You didn't do anything wrong." "I know," Dr. Hopkins explained it, "but I still want to ask him." The meeting room was clinical and cold. Two-way mirror on one wall, cameras in every corner, guards stationed outside. Christian was brought in, wearing a jail jumpsuit, his expensive suits and arrogance stripped away. He looked older, smaller than Matt remembered. Kevin sat between Matt and Dr. Hopkins, his small hand gripping Matt's. Christian's eyes filled with tears when he saw his son. "Kevin," he breathed. "Thank God you're okay." Kevin stared at his father with an expression far too adult for a 7-year-old. "Why did you hurt me, Dad?" Christian flinched. It wasn't supposed to hurt you. I thought." He looked at his lawyer, who nodded encouragingly. "I made terrible mistakes. I got involved with bad people, and I did things that I can never take back." "That's not an answer," Kevin said, his voice steady. "Why did you do it?" Christian's face crumpled. Matt watched carefully, looking for genuine remorse or signs of manipulation. What he saw was a broken man facing consequences he'd never imagined, but whether he felt guilt about hurting Kevin or just regret about getting caught remained unclear. "I don't have a good answer," Christian finally said. "I was sick. I'm sick, and I destroyed our family because of it." "Dr. Hopkins says you can't love someone and hurt them like you hurt me," Kevin said. So you never really loved me. That's not true. Then why didn't you stop? I asked you to stop. I cried. I said it hurt. But you kept doing it, and you let your friends do it too. Christian had no answer. He just sat there, tears streaming down his face, as his 7-year-old son articulated the truth he couldn't face. Matt felt fierce pride in Kevin's strength, mixed with rage that the boy had to be this strong in the first place. Mr. Foster, Dr. Hopkins interjected gently. If you genuinely care about Kevin's well-being, the best thing you can do now is cooperate fully with authorities. Help shut down every part of this network so no other child suffers what your son suffered. Christian nodded, defeated. I'll tell them everything. The international connections, the payment systems, the new platforms they're trying to build. All of it. As guards escorted Christian out, he looked back at Kevin one last time. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't help, but I'm so sorry. Kevin said nothing. He just turned away, burying his face against Matt's shoulder. Later, in the car heading home, Kevin spoke quietly. I'm glad we went. Yeah? Yeah. Because now I know for sure he's just a bad person. Before, I kept thinking maybe there was a reason, maybe something I could have done differently. But there wasn't. He's just bad, and it was never my fault. Matt pulled over, unable to drive through the tears blurring his vision. He hugged Kevin tight, this impossibly brave kid who'd survived hell and come out with clarity adults rarely managed. I'm so proud of you, buddy. So incredibly proud. Can we get ice cream? Matt laughed through his tears. We can get all the ice cream you want. As he drove to Kevin's favorite ice cream shop, Matt's phone buzzed with a text from Hal. Christian sang like a canary. Prosecutor has names, locations, accounts for international network. Romanian authorities are moving on the servers tonight. This is really happening. Matt allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, justice would actually be served. The dominoes fell quickly after that. Romanian authorities seized the gallery's servers, arresting 3 administrators in Bucharest. International arrest warrants went out for 17 more individuals across 7 countries. The FBI raided homes of 12 American subscribers, including both federal judges who tried to resign quietly. Deputy Chief Emmanuel Christian was arrested for obstruction of justice and evidence tampering. His conviction would be the fastest. He'd left a clear trail of corruption that even his connections couldn't erase. But Matt wasn't celebrating yet. He'd learned through hard experience that powerful people could still escape consequences. Money could buy delays, appeals, reduce sentences. Some of these men would likely die of old age before serving their full punishment. That's why Matt had kept one final card to play. Julian Moss called 2 weeks after the international arrests. Matt, I've got the rest of the story ready to publish. Names of every subscriber, every transaction, every piece of evidence. Once this hits, there's no hiding for anyone. Hold off for now, Matt said. I need to confirm something first. He'd been watching Roderick Underwood closely through the legal proceedings. The man had refused all plea deals, confident his lawyers could get charges reduced or dismissed. Even with evidence mounting, Roderick maintained an air of superiority that suggested he had one last escape route planned. Matt called in a favor from Larry Holt, the former Marine watching Kevin. I need surveillance on Roderick's lawyers. Legal, just watching who they meet with, where they go. You think he's planning something? I think men like him always have contingencies, and I want to know what it is before he can use it. Larry's surveillance revealed the answer 3 days later. Roderick's lawyers had been meeting with a private wealth management firm known for helping wealthy individuals move assets offshore and set up new identities in countries without extradition treaties. Roderick was planning to run. His bail was set obscenely high, but for a man with his resources, it was achievable, and once free, he'd vanish to somewhere the American legal system couldn't touch him. We need to move now, Matt told Hal. Publish everything. Make him too toxic to run. If we publish before his trial, his lawyers will cry prejudicial publicity. Could get the case thrown out. And if he runs, there is no case. Matt's voice was hard. These men use my nephew to make money and satisfy their sick urges. I won't let Roderick Underwood spend his retirement on a beach somewhere while Kevin spends years in therapy. Publish it all. Julian's article went live that night. The gallery exposed. Complete list of members, transactions, and evidence. It was journalistic nuclear war. Names, faces, occupations, everything laid bare for the world to see. The response was immediate and devastating. The tech CEO resigned and went into hiding. The state senator was expelled from office. All across the country, powerful men watched their lives implode in real time. And Roderick Underwood's escape route evaporated. No country would grant him sanctuary now. His face was too recognizable, his crimes too public. The private wealth firm immediately terminated their relationship, afraid of being associated with such toxicity. Matt watched the news coverage from his apartment, Kevin asleep in the next room. His phone rang constantly, reporters wanting statements, lawyers threatening lawsuits, even a few survivors of other abuse networks thanking him for his work. He ignored most of it. There was only one call he wanted, and it came just after midnight. Prosecutor Roberson. Matt, what you did publishing that evidence, it could have compromised the case. But it didn't. No. Actually, it made everyone so desperate to cut deals that we're getting confessions faster than we can process them. Roderick's lawyers just called. He wants to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for being sent to a facility with protective custody. He's terrified of what'll happen to him in general population now that everyone knows what he did. Good. He should be terrified. I'm not sure what to make of you, Mr. Casey. You've been helpful and problematic in equal measure. I did what needed to be done. Kevin needed justice, and I made sure he got it. Well, he's getting it. Christian Foster is pleading guilty. Roderick Underwood is facing life without parole, and the international cases are proceeding rapidly. We've identified 47 child victims and counting. All of them are receiving services. Much of that is thanks to the exposure you forced. After Roberson hung up, Matt sat in the darkness, feeling the weight of the last month settle on him. He'd crossed legal and ethical lines, had put himself and possibly Kevin at risk by pushing so hard. But Kevin was safe now. The men who'd hurt him were facing real consequences, and dozens of other children were being rescued and helped. Was it worth it? Matt thought of Kevin's nightmares, his trauma, the long road of healing ahead. Then he thought of the alternative, Christian and Roderick walking free on technicalities, other children being victimized, the network continuing its operations. Yeah, it was worth it. 6 months later, Matt stood outside the courthouse as Christian Foster was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Roderick Underwood had received life plus 60 years. Emmanuel Christian got 15 years for corruption. And across the country and internationally, other members of the gallery were facing similar justice. The civil suits had started, wives divorcing, husbands, victims suing their abusers, careers and reputations destroyed permanently. The gallery, once a sophisticated criminal network, was now a cautionary tale. Kevin was in therapy 3 times a week and doing better than anyone had hoped. He still had nightmares, still struggled with trust, but he was laughing again, playing again, being a kid again, as much as possible after everything he'd endured. Matt had been offered several documentary deals about the case, but he'd turned them all down. This wasn't a story to profit from. This was his family. Instead, he'd started a foundation, Kevin's name, because his nephew wanted it to help other child abuse victims access therapy, legal services, and support. Hal ran the technology security side, making sure the foundation's communications stayed private and safe. As Matt walked back to his car, his phone buzzed. A text from Kevin, sent from the tablet Matt had given him. Uncle Matt, I got an A on my dinosaur report. When are you coming to get me? Matt smiled, typing back. On my way, buddy. Want to celebrate with that new dinosaur museum exhibit? The response was immediate, 3 dinosaur emojis and yes, yes, yes. Getting in his car, Matt caught his reflection in the rearview mirror. He looked older, more tired than 6 months ago. But he also looked like a man who'd done what needed to be done, who'd protected someone who couldn't protect themselves. He'd always believed in second chances for most people. But for those who hurt children, there were no second chances, only justice, however you had to fight for it. As he drove to pick up Kevin, Matt Casey allowed himself to feel something he hadn't in months. Peace, not complete, not perfect, but real. The kind that came from knowing that when it mattered most, he'd stood up and fought back. And he'd won.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.